Are you a sex worker looking to build a new website or a website redesign? Then you'll want to consider Fox Digital. They did a fantastic job designing my website, Stripped by Sia. If you want your website done, mention that you're a listener of the show at foxdigital.design for 20% off. Tell them I sent ya. Just putting this trigger warning out here. There is a mention of sexual assault, rape, and race play in this episode. So if that is a concern for you, please do not listen to this episode. You're welcome to go halfway, but then we will be speaking about that later on in the episode. So just, practice your own boundaries here. Thank you. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Stripped by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, and all the fancy naked people in between. I am your host, Steph Sia, aka Kimchi on stage. You can catch me actually on the stage at the Penthouse this week, and next week I'll be on stage at my home club. You can go ahead and buy me a dance. You can tip me on stage, tip your sex workers, all that fun stuff. Come buy a private dance for me, talk about the show, do all the things. I'd love to see you. I will be at the world famous Penthouse nightclub in Vancouver, so come check it out. So in addition to being a stripper, I'm also a digital content creator. So I do have an OnlyFans where I make some great custom content, and I'm also a cam model as well. You can find me in Streamate. And I was also a sugar baby many, many years ago, about a decade and a bit ago. Basically my first entry into the adult space. And now I am hosting this lovely show called Strip by Sia, which is all about destigmatizing sex work. And I do that through education in terms of, educating the masses and being really transparent on what it is that we actually do, what our work entails, because a lot of the times our work is misunderstood. There's a lot of assumptions and stereotypes that go around any kind of jobs to do within the adult industry. So I feel a bit responsible in terms of no, let's try to set the record straight and remove the stigma, because at the end of the day, it is just a job, and a job to many, many people across the globe, and also the oldest profession in the books. So every week I bring on a different guest to speak about their little corner of the industry. And this varies in terms of maybe it's on-screen talent, maybe it's a cam model, maybe it's production companies, people behind the scenes, nonprofit organizations that are sex worker adjacent and are allies. So there's just a little bit of everything, and that's really, again, to provide the most transparent approach as possible and to really get a firm and thorough understanding of the work that it is we do. And this week is no different. I'm really excited to bring this week's guest on. This week, we're all talking about self-care, which is so important. And I know this topic really, really, really caused a lot of engagement on my Twitter and as well as Instagram too. A lot of people sharing different forms of self-care, which we'll be sharing throughout the show as well. But before we get into our guest, I just got to do a couple things. And if you want to fast forward to 5-minute mark, that's usually where I stop talking about the people I need to thank. So we'll start off with Patreon. So people that are on the second and top tier of my Patreon get a nice little fan recognition shout out. So just want to say hello to some folks. We've got some people in Canada here. We've got Arup Sarkar, we've got Jay Suncern, we've got some Americans here as well. We've got Justin Erickson, Ted McGuire, Marty Lang, Trey Lanty, and Guy. And we also have Snoo all the way from Germany. Just want to say thank you so much for subscribing. Your financial donations and subscriptions go towards helping provide hosting for my website. And also currently that's just going to be helping fund my trip to XBiz, which is an adult industry related event that's going to be hosted in Miami next month in May. So just know that your money is going towards there. If you want to find out more, it is patreon.com/strippedbysia, and subscriptions go and start as little as like $4. So you can kind of look to see whatever is right for you. It's a really great way of supporting the show. Another way you can support the show too is checking out the adult network that we're on, which is Skyhawk After Dark. It hosts adult industry related video casts as well as podcasts that are similar to mine. So go check them out at skyhawkafterdarktv.com. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my sponsor, which is Fox Digital. Fox Digital is a website designer and maker for those who are in the industry. And Anthony, the founder of Fox Digital, is offering Strip by Sia listeners 20% off website build. So whether you have a new website or you're wanting to get a website built, or maybe you want a makeover or whatever it is you want, go contact Anthony at foxdigital.design for 20% off. Whoa, right on the 5-minute mark there. We're going back on topic here. We're going to be talking about self-care today and what self-care is, why it's important for sex workers, why it is so necessary that we actually need to take some time and to commit some time and put aside time for that, because the work that we do is not only physical but also mental, and we really got to take care of bodies from within. So I'm bringing on this week's guest, which I'm really, really, really excited to chat with. This person goes by the name of Jazmyne, and they are the founder of Underneath Your Lingerie. They are a fellow cam model. They're a health and body coach specializing in women's bodies. And Underneath Your Lingerie is a program which demonstrates bodywork practices for reconnecting with your bodies. Because as you mentioned, our work is exhausting. It is work. So we need to take time for us to relax and to reset our bodies, because it can really take a lot out of us. So enough of me talking. Jazmyne, are you there?
I am there. Thank you so much for having me.
So excited to have you. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So I know you do a lot of things. You studied exercise science, and you have a wonderful, crazy story that we're going to get into shortly. But I would love for you to describe to the audience who you are in your own words and terms, because I think that's really important for you to describe yourself in the way that you would like to be described, and not just what I found on the internet. So
I think you did really good. So my name's Jazmyne, and on Camster, I also got underneath Kendra Lane, also known on for free. And I believe that as women, our bodies are a lingerie full of the softest, silkiest, most luxurious lace in the world. And the more that we treat our bodies like lace, the more this almost never ending lingerie design appears in our bodies. So it's almost like if you were to think of self care or fitness, to be like you were walking into a lingerie store, and we have the baby doll collection of ourselves, we have the luxurious silk robe glove collection of ourselves, we have the sexy garter belts, the
yeah.
leather and lace lingerie dress. And it's really giving that treatment to our bodies in all aspects. And when it comes to sex work, sometimes I like to flip it. I'm like, okay, I'm on a high sex diet. Like I'm feeding my body sex. So just like when I used to compete, I used to compete and like do bodybuilding and bikini bodybuilding shows and stuff.
Amazing.
Um, it was so much fun. So I would track my macros. Well, like, what does that look for in terms of sex work? Tracking my self care. What does it look like in terms of like my body, taking care of her as a person?
Yeah. That's so important, because like burnout is such a real thing in our industry. And, it's a lot. And especially when we're, live streaming, when we're camming, when we're doing a lot of this online work, but also physical in person work too. it's a lot of energy taken out of us, and it's so necessary for us to set aside some time for us to just like chill the fuck out. So and reset.
Yeah, like the people come to us for self-care, but we have to be sourced. And that's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy work.
Oh yeah, it's a lot for sure. And we are going to go later on in the episode in terms of specific practices that we can do with our own body, which I really like your approach. I know I was telling you off there earlier, but I was like, when people were submitting their responses for self-care, it was a lot of like, let's go for a massage, or let's go on a vacation, or like go treat yourself to a really nice meal. But like a lot of this stuff costs money, and I'm really hyper aware of like not everyone is afforded that luxury. So if there is a way that we can stimulate relaxation within ourselves, within our bodies, with specific practices, I think that's so beneficial, and the community needs to hear this. So hopefully we'll find some good value within that. And you're the expert here, and I cannot wait to dig into all that. But before we get started into the specifics of like different bodywork practices that you offer, I was really curious, and I'm sure the audience is also really curious, in terms of like your own personal story in terms of how you got into camming, or how you got into sex work, and how that led to Underneath Your Lingerie.
Yes, it is the weirdest story. It is the weirdest story. So
I'm here for it.
okay. So I once created a pair of wings. Let's start with there. Like, when you go to the Victoria's Secret stores and they used to have these huge wings, or like on the fashion shows.
Yes.
So, like, I come from a background with a ton of love. There's a lot of love, but, very like highly conservative. So, slits kind of sewn down on my skirts and stuff. And, but again, ton of love there.
Yeah.
But I always look to Tyra Banks in the Victoria's Secret fashion shows.
Iconic.
Oh, that was my thing. I had never seen a woman like this owning her body in the runway. And so I thought, well, when you get older, you just magically like, I don't know. I just thought I'm magically going to transform to Tyra Banks or something. That was my thing. That was my thing. So years later, I unfortunately lost my soulmate, and this little guy, he is my youngest brother. He has special needs, and he kept our entire family together, right? And so it was just a really raw time. And I had stopped training my personal training clients. I was working at a physical therapy clinic where we worked with a lot of athletes and stuff. And I stopped doing that to spend time with him, like he was on hospice. And I was just working at Victoria's Secret kind of on the side. And I have this background being artsy. So a way to kind of channel my grief was that I had designed these wings, kind of like Tyra Banks wings, and I would take boudoir photographs of the clients that I used to be as a personal train with, right? And it was just kind of a way, because I was like so suicidal and stuff. So it was just kind of a way just to like take my mind off of it and like see other women wearing wings and see them glowing up. There was just a feeling about that. And then I was like, well, why did I spend all this time training? Because when they put the wings on, their bodies changed and the transformation was so much faster. So that's what I was kind of doing. And my life was in the food processor at the time. So I was staying with different co-workers. Courtney and Crystal opened their home up to me. Mm-hmm. And I knew I needed to find a new vibration. Mm-hmm. Other than one that I knew. And I didn't know where I was going to go. So I remember driving down the highway and I was just crying out. I was like, God, where do I go? Where do I go? And this word appeared, but it was from a woman, and it said Austin. And I'm like, I don't know anybody in Austin. And so 2.5 weeks later, I packed everything I had into my Camry. My family gave me money to fix up my car. My store that I worked at, they put their money together, gave enough for the first month's rent. I literally, like, yes, gas was a different price, but I drove 1,600 miles, only paying $30 in gas. The rest was given to me with gift cards.
Oh my gosh.
One of the coworkers at the store, she called her sister in Fort Worth. So I stayed the night there. I never met her sister. There was a church family, and Marilyn had just moved to Texas, and so they opened their homes up to me, and I stayed
Wow.
there until I found a place to stay on Craigslist, and I transferred my job working at Victoria's Secret, but I couldn't take the wings with me,
Mm.
right? And so the structure of the wings were right anyway, but there was no way they're gonna fit in my
You're gonna,
car. Really, everything I had in my Camry, right?
yeah.
And so what I did, because ostrich feathers are so expensive, is I kept the ostrich feathers and I threw the structure away, which is kind of like a metaphor, I think, in a way, with what our lives can be, you
Oh,
know?
totally. Yeah.
And once I arrived in Texas, I started rebuilding the wings. But at this time, instead of seeing how big I could go, I just drew them the simplest, sexiest way. And I was like, okay, how small can I make this design, but pour
Mhm.
in all the sex appeal in the world, right? And the result, the wings looked so lifelike that people would walk into my room and they would ask me, "How did you get a pair of Victoria's Secret wings?" Like, it literally looked like something you would see in a fashion show.
Oh,
It
wow.
was yeah. They're yeah. I know you're recording this a little bit for so I about a couple of years later I dyed the wings pink. And I know you're kind of recording this for the video too, so the background, I don't know if you can see, but you can kind of see the wings
Oh,
here up on the
yeah.
wall.
Very cool. Wow.
So
Gorgeous.
yeah, it was quite a thing. And I, did women's stories and self-love. I'm like, book starts flying, like how you did this. But the strange thing was, and again, I know that the story's about to take an interesting turn here, is the same thing that I did with my wings began to happen to my body. And the more that I healed, my body redesigned herself in a way that was really scary to me, and I didn't know what was going on. And I had left to find a new vibration. My eyes started to vibrate. Then my entire body started vibrating. I was visiting with a friend when I got to Arizona, and she touched my body, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, your entire body is vibrating." It was the scariest thing. My face started to glow, so almost like when you're having sex and you have that glow, but
Yeah.
like my glow was even more than that.
Interesting.
And my this was gonna so impossible. Like my body literally started to smell like sex, and I thought I'm like I have a bachelor in exercise science. This does not happen. Like, what is going on? Like I remember staying at Airbnb, and this guy was like, "You just smell like woman as soon as you walked in here." And like to women, it smells like lavender, and to men, it smells like something else. And it'd be worse when I cried, and I did not know what was going on.
Yeah.
And at the same time, my body started to fall apart. So, I once ran a marathon without training for it. Now it takes a lot for me to just walk up steps,
Yeah.
to really just do anything, like to walk from my bed to the chair. It takes a lot because my vibration's so high.
Right.
And I spent time living, with my mom, with my aunt, with a girlfriend from college. I'm like, how am I gonna live like by myself now? Or like, what do I do after this transformation?
Right.
And so the way that I've done it is through sex work, and
Mhm.
it's completely saved my life. I remember
Wow.
my first week in the cam model room, or when someone taught me about tongue fetishes and I know anything about it, and I was like, wait, I can make money by sticking out my tongue. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, so now it's given me like more agency and more hope. And instead of seeing my body as being this weird, grotesque thing, which I did struggle with for a while, I'm like, well, what are ways that I can treat my body like lingerie within it, right?
Right.
And getting into camming, I really saw how much all the tools that I developed while the period in Texas my body was falling apart, plus all the tools that I used to do as a personal trainer, it really comes into play because there's days that you can be drained.
Yeah.
It is energy work, whether it's online or in person.
Yeah.
People are coming to you after a long day because
Yeah.
you're their place of solace. So
Right.
how do you help that but not take that on?
Yeah.
So
That's a really great question because, like, a lot of our work, yes, can be very physical, but oftentimes they don't talk about like the emotional labor that is required of this job. And you were talking about weight. It can be a lot of weight for us to carry. And, a lot of our clients are dumping a lot of things from their day or their wife or whatever it is, what's happening. But then where do we take that?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a lot. Yeah, not to mention all the things, because I'm also a fairly new cam model myself as well. There are a lot of things that we're subjected to in our cam model rooms that we're not consenting to. I know we were speaking about this off
Yeah.
air, but you were talking about non-consenting to race play, and maybe if you want to kind of go into that really briefly, we can definitely chat about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's been a huge thing because I didn't like I knew on some level it was going to be there, but it's kind of like I'm an ebony cam model, but I don't get to consent to my skin color. So I didn't get to consent to being black. I'm just fetishized for being black, right?
yes.
And it can happen in two different ways. So it can happen with like culturally biracial couples. It's something that even now today, I know we like to think we're so progressive, it really is taboo,
Mhm.
especially after you live in the deep south, because I've moved around a bit. Like
Right.
it really is taboo. So a lot of the guys, they might have had like girlfriends secretly who are black, and so they've seen me, and someone said like, oh yeah, I used to have a girl, like, and so there's that thing, and I'm like, they're so kind, they're so gentle, they're so beautiful with me, right?
Yeah.
But on the other side, there's been situations where I've been in private or I've been in my cam room and people have pushed race play on me, or they're like they know I won't go for it, so they'll bring the situation there. And I remember within it was the first 2 weeks of camming, this person, they made multiple accounts,
Oh,
and
no.
for 3 hours straight they berated me,
Oh my
and they
god.
talked about how dare I share my body in front of all these plantation owners, what would my ancestors think.
Oh
And
my
it
gosh.
was an onslaught, and I was new. I didn't know how to handle it. I'm still recovering for boundaries. I didn't really go into depth here, but part of my story, there is sex trafficking and sexual assault and being raped within it. So it's like that's going on in the, you know what I mean, kind of in the background.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, do I get off? But if I get off, then that person's gonna know that they can always run me off. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, how
Yeah.
do I kind of handle the situation? And when I say like the rest of the guys in my room, like they were absolute gentlemen. I know we say men can be men in a bad way, but they were like not having it. They were
Good.
defending even though they were getting attacked, and
Yeah.
they were like there. And later I called broadcasting, and I got a lot of support from them about how to handle it next time. But
Good.
it's like, how do you stay in your sensuality when you are doing such a vulnerable thing, And people do, they've had sometimes this mind thing, and there's been this mindset out there like, oh, okay, this is a woman, especially when it comes to being like a black woman. Sometimes it's been taught like you can go harder on their bodies, or because they're
Oh my
stronger, or so they won't feel like I wear a lush, so they won't feel the vibrations as much. And I've literally had guys say to me, like, well, you have a really strong, robust black vagina, and I don't know to take it within the slave sense or not,
oh my
but there's
gosh.
been this cultural programming
Right.
that I thought it was gonna be there, but going through it is a different thing.
Yeah. Totally. And like going along with your story too, like that is so hard to be subjected to that while you're live.
Yes, while you're live.
You're like,
Like,
what the fuck is going on? Like,
yeah,
holy shit. That's really intense because, like, I myself have also been subjected to that in my cam model rooms. Luckily, not so much, but myself as a person of color, I'm Asian for those who are listening. Um, also being fetishized as well. And I really hate those kind of conversations. I don't really stand for those kind of exclusive or any kind of race play, because I just really believe that it really feeds into supporting racism, and I'm just really not down for that at all. And yeah, like we don't ask for this kind of stuff or to be treated
No.
like that. It's such an invasion of privacy, and so awful in so many ways. So I'm really sorry that you went through that. And unfortunately it still continues like to this day as well. But to not go off on any tangents, like I just want to bring it back to your story too. You were mentioning parts of your past that you were sex trafficked, and there's bouts of sexual assault as well, that, you know, with these race play scenarios, that was maybe triggering some of that. But I'm not sure if you wanted to speak a little bit to that.
Um, yeah, so yes, it. Okay, so it's really hard to like explain. So I had an incident in college, which wasn't okay with a boyfriend, who I thought was a boyfriend, and it's kind of sad because I used to work at the Women's Resource Center, and so it's like here I would be talking with other women about what to do with their bodies and power and control wheels, and I would be like thrown around kind of the room and stuff when I got back home.
Oh my gosh.
And he raped me once, and it wasn't pleasant. And then I remember going to the clinic for help, and he ripped me really deep, and the person just kind of laughed
Oh my
at me.
gosh.
And I kind of feel like, not to bring the race thing again, but I think that does play a little bit into it, as
Mm. That's awful.
there's, historically speaking, it hasn't been that great history. You
No,
know
no.
what I mean? But I do acknowledge your story too, because I'm sorry that you can identify. I don't want, like, I don't want people to have to be able to identify with it. So that was on one thing. And then the second thing, and I know this sounds really strange and really weird and really spiritual, but when I mentioned my transformation, how in terms of like my eyes were vibrating and stuff, I noticed that people were responding to the vibration. So it actually started with masculine presenting women, and then it started with men, and they would start to say things that were completely out of the box,
Oh.
rude. They would say in front of their wives, and then this sounds really odd, but it got to the point where I could feel them inside my body, and their eyes would glaze over, and I would be penetrated again and again and again. Or if they wanted me to call me to move one place, they could literally control me. And I know this sounds impossible. I know it's not typically what people would think of when it comes to sex trafficking, but it was really just violating because I could feel them all in my body. I would be pulled to different ways, different rooms, and it would go over and over and over.
Oh my gosh. And you know what? Like I'm not like I hate it when people are telling their stories, and I've heard like other podcasts like denouncing their stories, and like, you know, that's not trafficking and whatnot, but that is, I mean, I'm sorry that happened to you. Like, I think that sex workers are very, very spiritual beings. Like, a lot of us really tap into different energy, and we can really speak to that for sure. And like, that's why I wanted to do this episode too, because like, there's something about spirituality and sex work that just kind of goes hand in hand. But one, I'm really sorry that you had to go through that, because it sounds awful. I can't even imagine what you might be feeling at that point too, and just trying to navigate at that point.
Yeah, like when you thank you for saying that. When you mentioned about sex workers and spirituality, when I finally found her name's Carla Marie Caladet, and she used to do like work in the sex field as well, and she now works as a healer. And she says when she looks at our bodies from a cyclic level, a lot of sex workers, our sacral chakras have been disconnected.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you go into that a little bit? And
Well, I wish I could. I
we'll have to bring
literally
that
like
person on.
yeah, you definitely have to bring her on. I wish I could, because it goes into, we were just talking a little bit about, she's like, yeah, we were being married off to demons and stuff for our powers. And I think it's a draining of our sexual energy. And something that I could see as I began to see like our anatomy change, I could see women's energy patterns. There's literally this imprint of a tree. It looks like the tree of life is a woman's body. And I know that sounds
Oh.
insane to say, but I can see the energy flow. And when I drew it out, it was a pattern of a tree. And I think that whatever was here was flipped down and it's been leaking out. So I literally think we're feeding something, and that a woman's body is literally the body of a goddess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
And
sure.
so, when there is a goddess, and then her name actually translates as tree. She's known as the goddess of the trees.
Oh,
And
interesting.
that's my spiritual belief, but I believe we're living in her body. And so
Mm-hmm.
the reason why women are sex trafficked, reason, not just women, but the reason why sexual assault, everything happens, is because it happened to this woman long ago. And so because sex was demonized and sex was a woman, we're demonized for it being it today.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you're tapping into that because now we're not always tapping into that kind of energy speak so much. But I mean, going back into your story too, how did this all relate to you finding yourself in terms of like um tapping in more so into your body to kind of release
Yeah.
this kind of self-care and whatnot?
Yeah, so I'll start with stuff that I started doing within, I guess, my like cam room and after my sessions. So after I cam, I do this thing where I just lotion my body. So my camera's off, I sit in front of a mirror and I take lotion and I massage every single inch of my body. And I say thank you. Thank you to my hands. Thank you to my breasts. Thank you to like anything, my booty, my legs,
Yeah.
my feet, and I give her the most thorough massage in the world. And I also play belly dancing music because
Yeah.
that music connects you to your body on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
And I say something that another coach, Kara taught me, is that, so she used to be a stripper, and
Mm-hmm.
so she said after stripping, I would always say, I send back any energy I've taken in and regain my own 3 times. And
Mm.
so that's something that I do. And then also, if I try to be aware, like I have a canvas that kind of walk you through, I'll walk you through in a minute what I do
Sure.
while I'm in my session to help with energy there.
Sure.
But if there's something that I violated myself, because we think of our bodies as being ours, but it is possible to really sexual assault our own pussies when we're in sex
Yeah.
work.
Oh, that's
And
so true.
so I try and ask her, like, are you willing to do this before she does something, and decide my boundaries ahead of time? But I can kind of see that on one side there will be men that will push you,
Yes.
and they'll will want different things, and it's definitely okay to say no. And I try to be mindful, and like I don't want to make it sound like it's been a negative experience, because I've had a beautiful experience,
Yeah.
but there has been situations, and there are predators out there, and they especially are going to look for the new girls, and that's
Oh,
just,
yes.
what I mean? They'll just see
Yes.
how much they can get for the littlest amount.
Totally.
And so I will literally look in the mirror, open up my legs, and just say, I forgive myself. I forgive you. I forgive my vagina, and ask for her forgiveness too. If
Mm-hmm.
there is something that I felt like I crossed the lines with her, sometimes I have to use an ice pack. I kind of put that on between my legs because I am super sensitive. And my guys know that. They usually tell people, like, don't tip her too much because she's sensitive. which, which is like, so they watch out for that. Or they'll know after a private, they'll be like, okay, go ahead. Because my name's Kendra, so they'll be like, go ahead and use your ice pack, Kendra. I'll see you tomorrow. Like, I literally have the softest pussy in the world.
I love how your regulars know that though. That's so cool and just shows how in tune they are with you.
Yeah.
But it's so true. Like, I don't know, like for myself, and maybe it's because I'm really new, but like, um, I get asked all the time, do you have toys? Do you have toys? And my camera shows for myself, like I pride myself in doing like a lot of natural stuff that I like because I do have
Yeah.
toys, but I like to preserve that for my own private time and stuff too. But sometimes, when people are like, oh, can you do this show? Can you do that show? And it's a lot of demands. Sometimes, you know, specifically with any kind of live streaming element or like camming, we want to please, like, I don't know, like,
Yeah, yeah.
you want to please the audience, but sometimes there is that bit where you can go too far, even though you are just doing it on yourself. Like, it's a lot, and you got to really take time after that to just, okay, give your body a break, which is so
Yes.
important. So,
Yes.
yeah, I think like some of the exercises that you're going to be discussing, starting off with like even just listening to music, as you mentioned, giving yourself a massage, lotioning down. I love that. It's so sensual. But what else can we do? What else have we
Yeah.
covered?
Yeah. Let me, and to touch on what you said about like pleasing everyone too, because I'm always like, choose whatever your niche is and then just own the mess out of it. Because I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm a black glam girl. Let me own the mess out of that. Be sensual and classy in terms of what that looks like. So, what also I do is if I'm during a cam session, I know this sounds so silly, but if I'm low on energy, a lot of the work that I do is tied to our the vagus nerve, which the
Mhm.
vagus nerve works your parasympathetic nervous system. So we
Right.
have your sympathetic nervous system, which responds to stress.
Right.
And then we have your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the one we're saying relaxing, be okay. Okay.
Right.
So your jaw or your top set of lips up here are tied to your set of lips down here. And
Mm.
so anytime you relax your jaw, you open it up down here. And so what I do is I say the word yes, yes, yes. Just literally yes, the word yes. And I do this motion, so kind of like a pumping motion with my hands. And I say yes, 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 yes. And I'll do that for a minute while in my camera. Like the people are watching me. But it lifts my energy up, especially on those long sessions where you're like, okay, it's contest week. So I don't know. For
Right.
me, I contest week is always super slow for me. I
Me
but
too. I get it. I totally understand.
I'm like, how am I gonna have this pick me up? So that's a way that I like pour energy while I'm in this session. Um, And then after, and not just after, but the way I kind of have it designed is to take care of my body more holistically, is I'll do different things throughout the day. So when I wake up, I do something that I call sex breathing.
Mhm.
And
Ooh,
I get on my hands on my knees, so kind of like a cat cow or cat camel position.
totally.
And I move my spine instead of going up and down, I move it rotationally,
Oh, yeah, I
right?
love
I
that.
move my hips with it, and then I bring the vagus nerve into it. And by either saying the word goddess, because anytime there's a vowel that's going to open up your jaw, or by using this ah sound, so like ah,
Yeah.
ah,
The release.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I like to use, I use the metaphors of bodies being a lingerie. So I think of it as the air in my body is a bunch of bras, and this is me washing my bras.
Yeah, cleanse. It's like a cleanse,
Cleanse,
basically.
cleanse. Yeah.
Exactly what that is. That makes a lot of sense. I love that. That totally ties in with everything that you're saying. And
Yeah.
just like you mentioned earlier too, just the sound and the relaxation of your jaw, because we hold a lot of tension actually in our mouth, in our jaw. And we need to just like release that too, because sometimes we're just like, clenching.
Yes.
And that's a
Yes.
lot of like you're holding so much in you, and it's like, okay, no, you got to release. And those sounds like ahs and ums and all that stuff helps you relax, is how I'm understanding that. So
Yeah, yeah, because there's no way to get to the nerve itself or the vagus nerve or cranial nerve 10 because it runs from your head down to your gut. But if you can do things like your jaw or the ears, which I'll show you next, it stimulates where that nerve is and it wakes it up. So if everything that's been going on with the pandemic and stress, that's from the sympathetic nervous system. So all we need to do is just activate the other nervous system.
gotcha.
So,
Yes, yeah, and of course we can describe it for those who are
Yeah.
on Patreon, and we can definitely.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, what I'm doing is an ear massage I learned from Suki Baxter. But if you start at the top of your ear,
Okay.
so start at the very top, and then you're gonna work your way down to
Okay.
like the first crevice,
Yeah.
and then very slowly, just using your finger, massage right there. Very, very light. Yep. You can do it on both. And then
Yeah.
you want to drop down again. That would be the second indentation. And the key
Oh,
is to go as light as possible. And I don't want you to be hard on yourself here because um, so after being through so much trauma, I was really good with like hard feels, and I'd like want something hard, but you want to be as soft, and the softer you are, the more your body responds to it. So you massage there for 30 seconds, and then you move to the back of your eardrum for 30 seconds, and then you move to your earlobe for 30 seconds, and it's just very small circular massages.
gotcha.
And then the top of the ear, you pull back for 30 seconds.
And
And then
anyone can do this, which is great. Anyone.
anywhere, anywhere. I've literally had clients be like, I can do this at work. I can do this, you know what I mean? In the car. And then you go right behind the ear where the ear connects to your head and you massage there in circles and up and down. And you feel amazing. So I do this every night. It's the easiest thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing to add to like your bedtime ritual,
Yes.
and can like help you even meditate as well, because you're like pausing, you're pressing pause essentially is what you're doing
Yeah.
here. I love that. That's awesome.
So it's so easy. And another thing that I do before, well, I'll go through this spot and I'll show you the over massage, but I also like to do massage in the breast. So it's a Taoist breast massage practice, right? And so I think especially because so much focus goes here, it's healthy, especially for us, because we're programmed society, like, well, certain areas of your body your partner touches, but you don't touch, right? Or a lot of times the first time your breast might be touched is by somebody else,
Right.
which is kind of strange when you think about it, right? Because you're like, oh, it's this body part, but then it's only used in intimacy when someone else is touching you for it. Like
It
that's
does seem backwards.
you know what I mean? Like question mark.
Like, wait a minute.
Question mark. So, if you take some coconut oil and massage around your breast where you're going out and down, and then you can repeat it and you can go up and in, up and in. Now, just kind of be mindful if you have cysts, this can be a growing motion when you go out and in, out to the side and up. So,
Okay.
small disclaimer there.
Right.
If you don't, it will grow your boob. So I increased by half a cup size just by doing that.
Cool. Yes,
Which
please. No
which
complaints
is
there.
it's very different. And then we also have your G spot, which I'm assuming that everyone kind of knows where it is, but it's just goes straight in and up, and you'll see that your G spot is there. And especially when you are doing sex work, we do so much performative stuff that it's good to make sure that at least once a week you're intimately connecting to and self-pleasuring yourself
Yeah,
without it being there and not for anybody else, you know?
totally. And masturbation is such a healthy form of self-care, in my
Yes.
opinion. Yeah, it's like a great way to start the day, at least for me personally speaking.
Listen, it's the best. And a little like life enhancement, if you can orgasm into your body, you build your energy. So instead of like releasing it all out, but inhale your orgasm, it's like high level sex magic. It's amazing.
I love it.
It's like amazing. And then the next one, this one's a little bit more taboo. But one thing I found in my healing journey, I was like, I wish that there was a place where I could just release all my trauma in my body without having to like think about it. I wish there was kind of like a Staples easy button for it, right?
Right.
And believe it or not, I found it, but in the least possible place you would think.
Really?
So I'll begin with like the woman's story. So there is this woman, I thought her name was Crystal, the tantric yogi, and she had 3 kids. And so they had cut her perineum in order to have the children. And when she was doing her own healing work, she's like, wow, my yoni gets really tight here around like 6 and 7. So she's like, let me try the other end. So she went in through her anus. And if
Oh,
you just press alongside the walls using coconut oil, it actually is an excellent place to provide nerve release. So it's one of the deepest nerve releases. A lot of sexual trauma in advance is released from that area.
interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. And like honestly, like when we're talking about the male G spot, it's also in the anus as well. So there
Yes.
is release, and it can be a very essential area that we often don't pay attention to sometimes if that's not in your regular sex work. But that's a really good place. I never even thought about that either.
Like I said, it's like like, but our bodies are our bodies, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
Yeah.
maybe there isn't a part of us that's stigmatized. It's like so important for us to not sexualize ourselves because this is where it starts, instead of being like, well, how about society sexualizing us? Like, I have to make sure I don't do that to me.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting that you're noting that these are very specific areas where they have very specific pressure points, and also
Yeah.
they're so useful in our own sex work as well. Um I know that there was another one. I think you're mentioning ovary massages as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So if you, and this goes back to, I've heard it goes back to the Mayans. I don't know when it's a Mayan, but Emery Paul teaches this. And if you take your fingers and if you kind of place them either side on the hip, so I'll stand up for the people that can see on the video, but if you place them right here and you massage here and up here before you go to bed, just take coconut oil and you're making like a scooping motion. Sorry, you're making a scooping motion on the bottom of your stomach
Gotcha.
and on your hips, like right where the ovaries are.
Yeah.
What that does is it actually helps to make more space where your female organs are. So, kind of like you might have heard of in the beginning of the morning, you're taller than at the end of the day, right? Because gravity can kind of suck your body down. Well, the same thing happens to the organs within your body. And so, along with the ear massage, I like to do this ovary one. And I demonstrate it standing up, but that we could see where it is. But you actually want to be laying on your back with your
Yeah.
knees bent. So
Okay.
that way everything's together. Take your fingers and do a scooping motion like you're scooping ice cream on the bottom of the womb and massage your ovaries, and it makes more space. And it's a little TMI, but like I was having a problem where every morning I would have to like run to the bathroom. And after I did this, I wasn't having to do that anymore.
Oh, interesting.
And I think it's because everything was like shrinking onto my bladder and kind of collapsing. This makes space before you sleep. You
Wow.
know?
Yeah.
It's almost, kind of going along with it, it's almost like when you wake up in the morning, if you just shift your pillow down and you lay backward over your pillow, it opens up your chest
Right.
from falling in case you're curled up. So
Right.
your body really is lingerie. It really does take on the patterns that it's been in.
Totally. That's awesome. I love to hear
So,
about this kind of stuff. And like you're making a lot of sense here as well. I'm sure this would really resonate with a lot of folks too. And that anyone can do from honestly anywhere.
yes,
Would matter.
that's the beautiful. That's the beautiful part. Like, and then the last one I like to do is a foot massage. So I'll have like essential oil blend next to my bed, and I stroke the side of my foot, so that's said to correlate to your neck and to your shoulders, and then the tops of your toes, that's your adrenals, and then if you massage inside your arches, that's said to be connected to your sacral chakra.
Okay, here we go.
So it all comes along. It all comes along. And then my way that I work out is different too, where when I work out, I do my reps. I like to say the word goddess. And this all comes from this idea that I thought, well, wait a minute. If fitness was initially designed for a men's body, how is it different from a woman's body? Right?
Right.
And I was like, oh, well, we have vagina. What's the difference? And like how you mentioned earlier, our jaws are locked up. So a lot of times when we're working out, we're actually locking up our vaginas. We're
Oh,
locking up a muscle and saying, okay, get sexy. Okay, lose weight. Okay, this. And if you look into what I call central transformation for women, for men, I look at as sexual transmutation. They're different things. So a lot of men, like, they thrive off that beast mode because historically, like, they were the hunters. They went out and they did that, right?
that was their roles back then.
Exactly. Yes. So that makes sense that fitness was designed to have this beast mode next limit thing. Whereas woman, it's different. So for our nervous system to be more open, receptive to our transformation, as I said, the word goddess, just relaxing my jaw here. It relaxed my other pair of lips down low. And it literally reversed the energy flow of my body. And I had one woman, she's like, I did an extra set of pull-ups just by doing that. And it also helps me just create new energy to bring into my cam room.
Right. And sometimes it can be a stretch to find extra energy. So
Yes.
we'll take all the energy we can get.
All day, all day, all day, all day.
That's awesome. I want to take this moment to kind of share because I was able to reach out to this community on Twitter and Instagram, just kind of wanted to gauge to see what other folks do for their version of self-care. And it's all across the board. It varies from person to person, but I think it's really important for me to kind of tap into our own community as well to see what else is going on out there too. So I'm just going to quickly read out these responses that came from Twitter and Instagram. It's just a lot here, so bear with me. All right, so now it's time for us to go over some of you listeners submitted self-care tips. So I'm just going to go ahead. Twitter got a lot. It's got a lot of traction on Twitter, and I'm just going to try to read through them all. It's going to be a lot of overlap. So, but hopefully this, by sharing this will inspire some of you to maybe think outside the box, but also be open to other ideas of self-care. So let's get into it. So we've got, it depends on how much I can spare my budget. Pedicure, nice meal out by myself. Costco sample numbing, which I love. Fast food. Camping by myself for a few days, which is a good way to disconnect and come back refreshed in a short period of time. Love those responses. Intentional time off, away from the screens, even just for an hour. Watching or being in nature and gardening may have really helped my mental health drastically too. Love that kind of plant therapy. I make sure I take my time and make sure to cleanse my energy after dates to reset myself and fill myself with my own erotic and sexual energy again. Very much so, since our jobs are very, very demanding of our energy, both mentally and physically. This one also says, taking care of my body. Since my money depends on it, I'm more motivated to do stuff like shower regularly, skincare / lotion, face mask, etc. Look good, feel good. Also having notifications off my phone, so when I'm offline, I'm offline. Love setting those boundaries. Sitting by the ocean and just absorbing myself in the environment. Big fan of nature here as well. Ignore and block often. Not everything needs a response. Save my energy for only those who appreciate and respect me. Put aside money so I can turn down session requests I'm not comfortable with. Prioritizing rest, healthy diet, and regular exercise. Sound advice there. Intentional time off, not just, oh, no clients right now, so this is me time, but purposely taking time away from work, away from social media, prioritizing yourself and things that fuel you. Remembering the FOMO is intense, but it's also all a mirage. So very true. Self-care looks like this every day for me. Drink lots of filtered water, have a warm bath, hydrating lotion, eating a healthy, balanced diet. I nap every day and get 7 to 8 hours sleep every night, exercise and meditate. I love that. I wish I had more time for that. This person says ice cream, keeping my social media on a separate device to avoid the doom scrolling on my days off, allowing myself rest days to work on creative projects outside of sex work, prioritizing mental and physical health above all. Little trips just for fun, not focused on work, massages, hot baths, stretching, walk my dog, journaling, mental health therapy, retail therapy, volunteering, digital detox, in terms of like staying off social media and my phone, keeping in touch with supportive friends and family. Love that. Hobbies. It sounds so simple, but we live in an age where we are expected to monetize all of our hobbies so that they become jobs. Very true. This person says, don't. Let some hobbies stay hobbies and have some passion projects. Be kind to yourself and give yourself just hobby days. So true. Even like as we grow into our adulthood, this is so important for us, for sure. This person visits family and friends constantly. I'm definitely not the best with self-care, so I rely on them. They don't know what I do, so when I visit them, I am no longer Sophie. That way, the real me is reminded how much I am loved and cared for and not completely neglected. That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I think it's important in this line of work to learn to separate your self-worth. To separate your self-worth from what people say about you and what they project upon you. We are more than just our jobs, and there's nothing wrong with our jobs. Well said, Jessie Sage. I ignore every and all messages I don't want to answer, even if I'm looking at my phone when they come in. I remove the pressure to be constantly accessible. Love that boundary. That's so healthy. I am definitely with you on that. This person also writes in getting in touch with nature, treating clients well, but also having the mindset of never seeing them again. So rebooks are pleasant. Surprises, which is a psychological trick. Very clever. Involvement in other communities. We got structure and naps. Remembering to eat when busy. Remembering to eat when busy. So simple, but so true. And I think we're all a bit guilty of that. I go backpacking myself, which I find awesome. Turning off DMs, cutting off clients that don't make me feel good, setting clear boundaries, making time for myself, no working allowed, which also in parentheses says time blocking, creating a work schedule, having subs send me relaxing things like bath salts, candles, etc., and taking a nice bath. Love it. Sex workers work 24/7. Even in our sleep, there are projects, videos, camming, etc. going on. Lines between our work and personal identities often get blurred. Being with my family and pets, exercise, disconnecting, and even grocery shopping can be self-care. Great, I love that. I love all that. Putting distance between yourself and your phones, laptop, etc. is so helpful with enforcing those work-life boundaries. I love squeezing in some tech-free time, especially as a sex worker who works entirely online. Seeing a big trend here. Disconnecting is super important. Organic food, therapy, support from other sex worker friends, bathing in Epsom salts, time in nature, ensuring mind, body, and spirit are all catered for. Yeah, this whole spiritual side with connecting with nature and just making sure that our mental health is happy is so important. Cannot get behind it enough. This person said, I've been working hard to establish more life-work balance. And they've wrote, reconnecting with hobbies I once loved, like reading, gaming, journaling, cooking, working out, and getting out in the sun and nature. Turn off notifications on my phone so I only check things when I'm in work hours. I love taking myself out for a nice dinner alone, some champagne and tasty bites, followed by a cocktail while indulging in a book. Excellent. And this last one here, boundaries, getting outside and being active. Lots of therapy, including equine therapy. Not getting into long, drawn-out Twitter arguments. So true. Plugging from my work phone, asking for a hug when I need one. But Jazmyne, going back to you, I know that you have a program with Underneath Your Lingerie as well. Can you quickly prime us on that too, in terms of like your current offerings?
Yeah, so I needed something I'll just admit it. I needed some kind of like accountability, some kind of guide. I didn't have one during my transformation or
Yeah.
during my thing. I literally just borrowed stuff from here, borrowed stuff from here, used what I knew of the anatomy and how mine was changing. And I needed something. I needed something. So the coach needed a coach. So I decided to coach myself and I made an online program called Underneath Your Lingerie. And it's videos. So it's a morning routine and an evening routine where you sign on, you do the workouts, and then we'll have that body practice, whether it's an ovary massage, whether it's a smoothie for the day. a massage practice, stories of the goddesses, because that's a whole nother another thing. But the goddesses, literally, once you learn about them, it helps you really understand more, connect to who you are as a woman. And then I do this seams thing every evening where I do a 5-minute bombshell butt lift. And then I have a body practice that you do that evening as well. So it's just something that way you can walk your way through, and it gives you what to do because there's so much out there.
Yeah.
But how do you organize into a self-care plan for yourself?
I love that because, yeah, sometimes, as you mentioned, like there's a lot of stuff out there. It can be really overwhelming and people just don't know where to start. They give up because they're overwhelmed. They're like, okay, well, never mind. I don't know if it's for
Yeah.
me, right? So it's really good that you're able to provide a guide for folks where they can at least start them in the right direction and kind of can go from there. So that's super awesome. But Jazmyne, before I let you go, where can we find you?
So you can find me on underneathyourlingerie.com. I send out a weekly newsletter, and then you can find me on Flirt for Free or Campster on Kendra Lane.
Amazing. And this was such a great conversation. I'm lucky to have you on the show because I don't always have these episodes that really are able to tap into our spirituality and that spiritual side and just the energy, which is so important in this line of work because a lot of it, again, is it's really mental and you have to really be present in order to do this kind of work. So thank you for sharing your methods, sharing your story today, and your wonderful program as well. For everyone else that is listening at home, it's strippedbysia.com. You can kind of pitch yourself there if you're looking to get onto the show. It's Stripped by Sia on all podcast platforms as well. So you can find me on Apple Podcasts if you want to write a nice review if you're enjoying the content. A review would be very helpful as well as a 5-star rating. Same with Spotify. And if you want to get in touch with myself, you can definitely get in touch with me directly on Twitter and Instagram at Stripped by Sia. And it is new episodes every single Sunday, dropping at 12 a.m. midnight Pacific Standard Time. And we'll catch everyone in for another episode next week. Thank you so much for joining me, Jazmyne. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for this platform. I mean, this podcast, this is like eating candy, going through all your episodes. Thank you for what you're doing for the industry. It takes a lot to put all this out there. So thank you. Thank you for giving us a place to be call home.
Thank you so much. Until next time. You're listening to Stripped by Sia, hosted, produced, and edited by Steph Sia. Music by Ted D. Graphic design by Maria Valenderrama, and photography by Ian Dabrin.